Everyone, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Kindly be seated. Everyone, if you have a cell phone, please put it on vibrate, shut it off. If there's any physical emergencies, we have 2 bathrooms here during the night. Please use the facilities if you need to. And our guest speaker is our founding father and past president, Rudy Zarchese. Rudy?
Good evening, everyone. And I'm happy to be here because this is a very important, which is the future of the Borough of Queens and the city council, which represent the whole. That's what the primary is going to be pretty soon. It's very, very important to go to vote. Get all your friends and neighbors, make sure to go to vote. That's the only things we can elect the people which work for us, our community. We raise our kids, and we do business here. So we need a safe place to be. Which now what's going on over here, we never have this kind of problem. Now it's going steps here and shoot there, which is not acceptable. But all depends on us. Because if we go to vote and we rather the right people, we have the right people, this will not happen. So the city of New York was the safest city in the world 15 years ago, what is, but today is one of the worst because the right people doesn't vote for the right person. So we got to make sure we get involved. You know, we have this association for 26 years, I believe. You know, we work hard for the benefit of the community as well for, but we need your input. So when we have the meeting, get informed, get your friend, your neighbor, anybody can bring in more people, especially young people. They gotta know what's going on with their future. So it's very important for the young people too. Because somebody for 10, 12, 13 years old, they can learn. So we do need that. So I appreciate it to be here. I can see, you know, the people are interested to this kind of meeting. And I thank everybody, thanks you, the people on the board, thanks you. So we work hard, we try to do the best we can. But we need your input. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
As we were saying tonight, by candidates night, next Tuesday is primary election day. A little bit different on the city council voting this year. It's rank order, so you're going to see a couple of names on the ballot, and you have to vote number 1, number 2. You can't vote in the same line, number 1 and 2. Your ballot gets thrown in the garbage. So please, it's rank order only for city council seats. The other election is a little bit different, so please be careful about that. Also in November is the general election. We have our candidates night. We invited everyone. We invited Tiffany Thaban, our present council person, and she was busy tonight. She cannot attend. And we also invited Melinda Katz, our present district attorney, and she canceled yesterday. Supposedly she has a meeting in Albany working on something. So tonight, it's not a debate. It's a presentation. They're going to be speaking to you for 9-10 minutes, and then we'll have each candidate have questions from the audience. Please be respectful. You know, I insist that every single meeting. You have a question, it's a question. A statement is something else. We're not here to have your own stage or make statements. You're here to find out what these candidates are all about. So you can ask questions about their past, questions about the future, what's good for the neighborhood. So that's up to you. But we'll call on about 4 or 5 minutes of questioning. All right, our first candidate tonight is running for district attorney of the county of Queens. He's a former judge, so the Honorable George Grasso.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here tonight. And I love being in Astoria. I was NYPD for over 30 years. I started as a foot cop in Queens. and I rose to the rank of First Deputy Police Commissioner, number 2 in the NYPD between 2002 and 2010. Along the way, I was a captain, and I used to have duty captain sometimes in the 114 precinct where we are today. After I left the NYPD in 2010, I became a judge. I was appointed 5-year term to the criminal court by Mayor Bloomberg, and then a 10-year term to the criminal court by Mayor de Blasio. I was supervising judge of citywide arraignments, appointed in 2012. We had arraignment times of over 30 hours. They made me in charge of the city. We got arrest to arraignment times down under 20 hours. I then instituted in Brooklyn, I instituted parks for young people. Young people who got in trouble, we would focus on consequential thinking and self-esteem, and we would work with them, and then we would dismiss their cases. Then I went to the Bronx. I was the supervising judge in Bronx Criminal Court for about 5.5 years, and I created a court called the OR Court, Overdose Avoidance and Recovery Court. We focused on it. I was the supervising judge. I worked with all the stakeholders. I worked with the defense. I worked with the DA. I worked with the service providers, the police department. And we took people who were arrested in the Bronx for low-level drug sales, for trespassing, for stealing, for what we call quality of life type offenses. And if they were assessed at arraignments to have a serious substance use issue, they were sent to my court. And what I did, working with the defense and with service providers and with the DA's office, we had a professional assessment of these people, and if we found that they had a serious substance use problem, most specifically opioids, because we've got fentanyl out there, and the Bronx was and is ground zero for overdose deaths in the country, I would make a deal with them. Here's what you had to do. Cooperate with my services, voluntarily submit to an evaluation, a first-class evaluation, stay out of trouble, and come to court. In return, I'll save your life and I'll dismiss your case. It was a good deal. And we helped dozens and dozens of people. And I was asked by the Chief Judge, Janet DeFiore, to implement this throughout the city. Then I came to Queens again. Like I said, I started as a foot cop in Southeast Queens in 1980. I came back as the administrative judge in Queens Supreme Court, 2021 through August of 2022. And what I did in Queens, we had the post-pandemic. We would go months with only 1 or 2 jury trials. I dove into that problem. Within a few months, I had us doing up to 10 trials in a day. I also created a Queens diversion park for young people who were 18 to 24 years old. They were charged with C felony gun possession. We would look at them if they had a clean record, if they were willing to renounce any gang affiliation, they were willing to accept the services of the court, we would accept them into a program. They would sign a contract. They would plead guilty to a D felony and they would face 2 years in jail. But if they stuck with my program and stayed out of trouble and repudiated any gang affiliation, we would dismiss the felony conviction. They wouldn't go to jail. We'd get them on with their lives. I had a great job. My term was not up until December 31st of 2024, and on August 31st of last year, I quit that job. I walked away from it. The next day, I got in my car, I drove to Albany, September 1st of last year, and I filed paperwork, Grasshopper, Queens, to run for district attorney. And the reason that I did that is in my 43 plus years of service in the criminal justice system, I recognize that something I worked so hard to fix with people like Commissioner Bill Braddock when he was first appointed in January of 1994, we had 2,000 murders a year in New York City. And everyone was afraid to use the subways. And Bill Braddock brought me in, and I helped devise the first quality of life a strategy in the NYPD where we focused on the street level drug dealing, we focused on the trespassing and the graffiti, and we focused on the aggressive panhandling, remember the squeegee men, and we focused on fare evasion. And what we were able to do as a team is take New York City from record levels of crime and bring it to record levels of safety, as was alluded to earlier. By 2017 and 2018, not too long ago, in a city of 8 million, we had less than 300 murders a year in New York City. New York City was the safest city in the United States, one of the safest cities in the world. And then in 2019, something went out of whack. It was called bail reform, discovery reform, so-called criminal justice reform, where the legislature, and the governor at the time was Andrew Cuomo, they pulled together this legislation. They leaned heavily into defense advocates. I understand Ms. Caban represents you. This was very representative of the type of views that she had and a lot of her colleagues had. People like her, they were listened to. Judges like me were ignored. District attorneys ignored. The police department ignored. And by the way, victims completely out of the equation, thrown under the bus. So what ends up happening with this genius plan? They take all of these crimes that I just ticked off, the assaults, the retail thefts, the drug dealing when we have fentanyl on our streets and people are overdosing. They call them unqualified offenses. Commit 5 of them, commit 10 of them. Have it be a recidivist. Have warrants, don't come to court. Guess what? The judges can't use bail, can't send you to jail. The leverage of the court was destroyed. Destroyed. And we have seen commensurate increases in crime. And we have district attorneys throughout New York City, including the incumbent Melinda Katz, who refuse to take these issues directly on. How does that translate for Queens? As we're here today in Queens, we are looking at, in Queens North, where you are tonight, Patrol Borough, Queens North, over the past 2 years under the tenure of Melinda Katz, we have had an increase of over 60% in major felony index crime. What's major felony index crime? It's murder, it's rape, it's robbery, it's felony assault, it's burglary, it's grand larceny auto. In this precinct, the 114, car theft is off the hook and rising. Subways are not safe again. We're having slashings on 3 women just slashed in the subway in Manhattan. And in the way New York City works, whether it's Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, it impacts everybody. D.A. Katz, she tries to say, well, I'm fighting for changes. Governor Hochul was saying, look, I want to get judges the ability to hold people if they're deemed dangerousness. In the last budget process, when Governor Hochul said she would accomplish this, she was completely ineffective. Judges still have no dangerousness authority. Who was there at the press conference? I call it the propaganda press conference, smiling and waving. D.A. Katz, who says she wants a dangerousness standard. So what am I going to do? I'm going to bring back quality of life enforcement. You look on my platform, you will see, focusing on victims, quality of life, and the Mental Health Bureau. We're going to divide Queens into 5 sections: Northeast Queens, Northwest Queens, Southeast Queens, Southwest Queens, and the Rockaways. I'm going to bring in civics. I'm going to bring in clergy. I'm going to bring in religious leaders. I'm going to bring in the NYPD. We've got the NYPD in the house. And we're going to give you And you are going to get what we call ComStat-style presentations. And I'm going to be in charge. And I'm going to have a community responsiveness bureau chief with me. And the commanding officer is going to take you through it, as well as the borough commander. We're going to put your precinct right up on the screen, just like we do at One Police Plaza. You're going to see exactly where your crime is. You're going to see where it is, you're going to see what it is. And then I, as the DA, who's the chief law enforcement officer in the county, will act like a chief law enforcement officer, and I will prioritize what you want prioritized and work hand in hand with the police department and support the police department. And that's how we're going to make you safe. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Grouse, how are you? Born and raised in Astoria, 48th Street, Demont Boulevard. Astoria Boulevard. Quick thing, I served the city as well, law enforcement. Thank you for your service. Yesterday, I said goodbye to my son going to the movies to see his girlfriend. 5 minutes later, I'm coddling him on 47th Street. 7 days later, it's back. In a fool's play. This has gotten out of control again. What I need you to do as a DA, uncuff them. Let them do their goddamn job. That's what I want you to do.
You know why I'm the DA to do that? Because I was their boss. I was first deputy police commissioner for 8 years between 2002 and 2010. I started as a foot cop. I know what went wrong. We undermine the respect of the rule of law, and we try and blame the police department for everything. I'm going to bring the police department in as partners with you, including the civics. We're going to set the priorities together. We're going to get the rule of law back, and we're going to respect the rights of the accused. These are not mutually exclusive concepts. And if I didn't believe I could do this, I would have never left the prestigious, comfortable position I had as the administrative judge. You vote for me, I promise that's going to happen.
Any other questions? Sir, please stand up.
I had a question for Melinda Katz, but she bowed out at the last minute?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What happens is that she touted on April the 26th, a great program she's adopting from Jamaica for similar to like a trespass affidavit program.
Trespass affidavit.
Right. She's adopting it into the 109 precinct in Flushing. A lot of businesses. I see a lot of businesses are closed. They're not doing well. What happened is that she said, and this is from her press release, there are a total of 25 stores from mom and pop and large chain retailers currently that participate and initiate through the 103 precinct. Since this program's creation, the NYP issued 23 people's violations, and only 3 of those returned to the location in question, resulting in their arrest. So they got 25 stores that started in 2021, and we're in 2023. That's like 2 years, 25 stores. If it was a wonderful program, shouldn't they have like a couple of 100 stores who are involved in this? Judge, what do you think about a program that has 25, and now they're going to practice it in the 109 precinct because it's so
That's
successful?
also at 114 is going to subscribe to it also.
The work,
Okay, but I hope they, not with 25 is not going to work. You need hundreds of stores.
Question for Judge.
okay. The word would be anemic. It's anemic. It's putting a Band-Aid on a major, major catastrophic wound. By the way, if you think you've got bad crime and bad crime increases here in the 114, which you do, the 109, which is largely Flushing, and a population of about 300,000, how about these numbers? 7 majors up over 112%. The major felony index crimes. Robberies and felony assaults up over the past 2 years. Robberies and felony assaults, like what happened to your son, felony assault, up over 100%. Grand larceny auto, over 100%. That's what Flushing is like. And this is the anemic solution. Oh, and by the way, Ms. Katz said she was going to Albany. I just came from what we call a Zoom debate. Schnepp's Media, one of the largest media organizations in Queens, scheduled a debate about a week ago for the district attorney candidates. Me, Melinda Katz, and Debbie Ann Daniels. It was on Zoom. No show. No show. Unable to make it. You know what that meant? Didn't want to make it. She could have done that from Albany. She doesn't want to stand here and debate me face to face. If she has better information, she likes to say I'm cherry picking the numbers. Cherry picking? I'm giving you major felony index crime numbers. All NYPD constat through June 4th. Those are pretty big cherries, Melinda, wherever you are. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more question, please. Yes, sir.
I think I have to answer for why Melinda Cass not showing up, because she had no experience on how to deal with the community, on how to deal with crime rates, police department.
What's your question, sir?
I said the answer to Melinda Cass not showing up, she had no experience, she's a politician. She don't have no experience being an attorney, how to deal with the criminal justice system. That's what she can answer, she's not showing up. But my other question is, I hear you talking about the community of Queens. I'm from Queens. You know, crime is up, things like that. I mean, we need to talk about prosecutor misconduct if you become a DA. How you gonna clean that from DA's office? Because if you go on Google, the Queens Attorney's Office, they talk about prosecutor misconduct. It talks about police misconduct. How will you clean that up if you be a new DA of Queens County? Corruption among the officers in district attorney and Queens County.
Leadership, training, and accountability. When I was in the NYPD for 10 years out of my 30 years, I was in the NYPD disciplinary process called the Department Advocate's Office. I personally prosecuted some of the worst corruption cases in the history of the NYPD. I was the chief prosecutor for 5 of those years as managing attorney. So I know about accountability. When people who work for you are doing the right thing, you back them up. When they're doing the wrong thing, you get the word out, you know how to hold them accountable, and you hold them accountable. But they have to be trained, they have to know what the rules of the road are, and they must know when they're doing the right thing, as what I did in the NYPD. I will back them up. That's what you do. I hope that answers the question. No more?
Yeah, no more questions. We have other candidates. We're having equal time. A big round of applause.
You must vote. You must vote. We're in early voting season. If you need to know where your polling site is, Natalie, stand up, wave your hand. She'll show you where to go. Very easy to find out. Voting in the primary is June 27th. I'm in the Democratic primary. If you like what you hear, I need you to vote for me. Even if you're not a Democrat, tell Democrats, I need you. You be there for me, I'll be there for you. Thank you very much.
Our next candidate is for City Council. She's not a Democrat, so she will not be on the ballot next week. She'll be on the ballot in November. She's a Republican, and it's Kelly.
First, just thank the Astoria Homeowners, Tenants, and Business Association, Civic Association for inviting me today. Astoria is a wonderful community. It's a community where you can raise a family. Many of my family and friends, they all grew up here. My name is Kelly Klingman. I'm running against possibly Tiffany Vaughn, hopefully Charlie Castro, in November for City Council District 22. I grew up in a working class family. My mother's Italian, my father is Russian and Polish. My grandmother had 8 siblings. They all lived on a 5-block radius. My mother had 26 first cousins. My house was always full. Many of my family and friends owned local bars, local businesses. My cousins basically grew up in bars. So I grew up in a neighborhood that is like Astoria. And so when I came here, I wanted my kids to grow up in a neighborhood like this, where family and community come first. I admit I was not involved in a lot of these associations. I believe there's 2 Astorias. There's a new Astoria, and then there's this Astoria. And I want to bring that together. Just like you, I've seen crime go up. I've seen not just crime, but education getting worse. I've seen things change since COVID. And since the emergence of like AOC and Tiffany Caban, like you, businesses have been closing, crime's increasing, the streets are becoming very dirty. All of a sudden, there's bus lanes everywhere and they're taking away our parking. So I realized that I'm partially to blame for this, because I'm not involved in the community, and all I think that I need to do every day is just go and vote when there's an election. But that's not enough. There is a huge divide in Astoria, and my goal is to bring the Astorias together. I will work with all of you to bring a stronger Astoria by proactively participating in the community initiatives. I will work to make our neighborhoods safe and secure by advocating for more police presence, working with the NYPD. We need to incentivize our officers so they want to serve our communities, and we have them handcuffed. I believe everyone deserves a safe and affordable place to call home. I will pursue policies that incentivize real affordability and assist landlords in offering affordable units. I absolutely oppose Local Law 97, and that is a Green New Deal initiative that Tiffany Caban and the Progressives have passed through, and that will basically make it unsustainable costs for you to be a landlord and to run any type of properties. I will protect small landlords and work to manage public housing more effectively. I will address the mismanagement of NYCHA properties and ensure affordable rents. I will champion policies that reduce classroom sizes, involve parents and teachers in decision making, protect charter schools. I will support career and technical education. I will advocate for policies that reduce unnecessary regulations for our small businesses, fees, and bureaucracy. I would like to make it easier for small businesses to thrive in this community because they are the backbone of our community. I oppose any legislation that makes it difficult to fire workers and allows nonprofits to sue local businesses. And this is legislation that Tiffany Caban is pushing through. And it is totally strapping our local businesses. I am committed to providing resources and support to the middle class. I'm advocating for job creation, lower taxes, and I would like to reduce any type of regulation that is continuing to grow. The government is getting bigger, they're coming after us more and more, everything is more fees, more taxes, but yet you can have an illegal operated streetcars and not be pushed to the brink. As your Republican candidate for City Council, I am dedicated to restoring public safety. That is my #1 priority. I am dedicated to reducing housing insecurity, to taking care of our seniors, protecting education, supporting small businesses, and serving and protecting this community. This community that I love and I want to raise my kids in and I do not want to move from. My election's in November, but I'm open to any questions that you have.
Stand up, please.
My question to you, because I'm a district leader, can you speak without reading from the phone to the public? Because it has to come from the heart and your mind, not something that you read off the phone.
Yeah, I did write it, but yeah, I get nervous when I get up in public speak. This is my first. Yeah, that's okay. I'm not a career politician. That's true. I can answer your questions. I can speak one-on-one. I'm getting better at public speaking in front of everybody. It's not my strongest point. However, everything that I wrote is true. Everything that I wrote comes from the heart. So, next question.
Question? Yes, sir.
What's your take on congestion pricing? I know there's a lot of homeowners that drive here. I want to know what's your take on congestion pricing.
Congestion pricing?
Yeah.
Congestion pricing is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a nightmare for this community. Because people are going to come in, they're going to drive here, they're going to park, and then they're going to get on the train. So, and it's just, I understand they did this before COVID, but things have changed. Everything's gone up. I am completely against congestion pricing. And to be honest with you, it's not fair. So the MTA is complaining about $500 million in losses because people are hopping the train station fares, and they're not paying when they get on the bus, and they're paying when they get on the subway. So now we all have to pay if we want to go into Manhattan and drive and have congestion pricing. And it makes no sense. So again, it's the law-abiding citizens that are being penalized for the citizens that aren't abiding by the law.
Question, sir?
Mr. Grasso, becomes Queen's DA, would you confer with him every once in a while so you can see what's going on in the court system?
Well, absolutely. Well, this is the issue. So you now currently have a city councilwoman who doesn't want to confer with anybody. She doesn't want to come and speak with the police department. She doesn't want to come to meetings, bring DOT and the police together. She doesn't want to work with the DA. I have a DA that I've been to meetings with. She's coming here. She's working with city council people from other districts. She's working with Vicky Palladino, she's doing programs somewhere else, and then she's getting the success with those programs, and then they're coming to Astoria. So you talked about the trespasser affidavit program. That trespasser affidavit program is working in Whitestone, it's working in a couple different areas. So it is being brought here based on the success from a city councilwoman who went to the DA and said, our small businesses are having an issue. Our small businesses have employees, they're getting harassed, we have customers that are getting harassed. We can't do anything because as soon as we get somebody to take care of them, they get arrested and they get out and they get right back out of jail. And so then they come back to the store and they do the same thing over and over and over again. So the program was combined with Vicky Palladino, working with the district attorney, and they came up with a solution that if they had this trespasser affidavit and businesses participated, they could at least give them a warning. Once the perpetrator got the warning, the second time they trespass, they can be held on bail and they can be arrested. So that was the purpose of the program. And that was in combination with working with the district attorney. We all have to work together. We can't just sit here and have our own political ideologies. Like the whole point is that I'm here to serve the community. And that's what the city council is supposed to do. It's supposed to be working with the community board, it's supposed to be working with the local businesses. We had a local business meeting last week. She was invited, she didn't show up. She went out with the ice skating rink at Athens Park. I don't know if anybody heard about it, they wanted to do an ice skating rink at Athens Park. She wrote a letter supporting the ice skating rink, and then when there was some community opposition, because they were going to be using some of the park for PS 17, Gus, who's proposing the ice skating rink, decided, well, I'm going to have a town hall, because I want to hear, I'm a community guy, this is my neighborhood, I grew up here, I want to hear from the community, and I want my council person who wrote this letter and supported this to show up and back me up. Well, he had the town hall, and Tiffany Caban did not show up. She did not show up to back up her statement because she had opposition, and she didn't want to deal with the opposition. She blows with the wind. I don't blow with the wind. I stay, pretty true to who I am. I'm here to serve you. This community has done nothing but give me everything. I'm a single mom of twins, and when my ex-husband left when my kids were only 6 months old, this community rallied behind me, and I had met so many wonderful people, the Irish community, the Greek community. I am so a part of this community, and when they asked me if I would run for office, I have a great job, I have a good family life, I said, are you crazy? And they said, listen, this is your city council person, and we need you. And I said, absolutely am I going to run for office. Absolutely am I going to do this, because I can't not give back to the community that gave me everything. Everything. So that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm running. And she's not here for you. She is here for her political ideology, her own agenda. That's what she's focused on. That's it. And it's like they got out of college, and they all have these great ideas, which is wonderful. I don't blame her. She's ideological. She thinks, all this stuff's going to work. They study things in Portland, Oregon, and they say, oh, this works over here, so we want to bring it to New York, and we love what happens in Europe, and we want to bring that policy here to New York. And they have these great ideas, but they're not working for the community. They're not sitting here saying, what do you want? How do you want this community to run? You've been running this community longer than I've been alive.
Let's get one more question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Stand up, please.
So, you said that you're a local historian. I want to know, versus you and Caban, your office hours. Are you going to be available?
Office hours?
Yeah, my office hours.
Will she be present? I don't care about the office hours. Will she be present? Will she be not scared to open up and speak to the people?
All right, thank you.
To the people that are there?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only.
Because there's business, I don't know if there's business people in here, but I'm not a business owner, but I'm a homeowner. But if the person who's gone, and there's a lot of, Aurelia restaurant has been vandalized so many years, for so long, so 6 months now they've been vandalized.
Yeah.
Our own street spot has been vandalized, has been abused, has been broken into, so many damages, and all those owners are attempting to go to Tiffany Caban, but every time she's closed. Her gates are down. 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:30 in the morning. When I go there and I need
okay, we'll try to get you an answer now.
Yeah, it's okay, she's not there. No, I know, no, that's number one. I will not just have open I live here. I will not just have open office hours. I'm going to do pop-ups in different parts of the community, so I'm more than accessible. I'm going to be doing business meetings with, we're trying to actually put Roseanne from Astoria. She runs the 30th Avenue Business Association. There's another person that does all the Ditmars businesses. He has meetings with them. We're trying to put them together. We're trying to say the whole business community in Astoria should be working together. There's power in numbers. There's so much going on and nobody's helping and nobody's answering. So the only way to do that is for everybody to get together. So not only will I be there, but I will be advocating on behalf of the community because that's what I'm being elected to do. And that's the only reason why I'm running. And you can ask me, I know I have to sit on the phone. I'm so sorry. I will get better, I promise. But I know that I can take your questions. I don't blow with the wind. I am here because I know this community, I love this community, and I am here to serve you. I'm not here to serve myself. So I understand that the job is going to require me to be more than available, and I want to be more than available, because that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this to help everybody. I'm not a politician.
Big round of applause. Our next candidate is also for city council, and he's on the Democratic side, Mr. Charles Castro. Mr. Castro.
Good evening. So how many people voted already? Raise your hand. Wow. Then you wonder why you have Tiffany Caban in office. Okay, my name is Charles Castro. I'm a candidate for the city council here in Astoria, the 22nd district. And I had no intention of running for the city council until I found out that Tiffany Caban was going unopposed. And I said to myself, this cannot happen because we cannot have a person like that representing us, a person who is more interested in the criminal aspect of life than she is within the victim of life. People fall prey to these people and she doesn't care. She cares more about the victims. Okay? I'm also a former member of the NYPD. I've served the city for a long time. I also worked in the city council in the New York State Assembly. And I hear your questions. I'm not going to be here very long speaking, but all your questions make sense because you see, these make headlines that she doesn't open her office. Okay, she didn't open her office until recently. That's another reason why I'm here. I wrote to her office 3 times with regards to 3 separate issues, sent her emails, called, and I never got a response. Not even I'll get back to you, not, we'll see what happens, nothing. So I said to myself, how can we have this person in office? A person that doesn't care. Now, you might ask me, what's my platform? My platform is I could walk off in 1 minute, my platform. My platform is very simple. I am completely against everything that she's for. That's my platform. Okay? I do not want to defund the police by 90%. I do not want to abolish the police. I do not want to close prisons, legalize prostitution. I'm against the bail reform. Makes no sense. That is basically my platform. And my opponent, I think, is crazy. Because if anybody that wants all those things in New York City or anywhere in the country, you have to be crazy. How could you want no police? How could you want to defund the police by 90%? Commissioner Grasso, and I agree, when you have corrupt police, you deal with them, but you cannot hate all of your police officers. Because they're not all bad, just like with ethnicities. They're not all bad. We have good people in every ethnicity, we have bad people. But we can't just paint them all with a white brush. There's good cops, there's bad cops. People expect the cops now to do their jobs, but they have a very difficult situation. They've lost what's called a qualified immunity. They had been working without a raise for 5-6 years. They got the raise, but they still have to deal with that qualified immunity. And I don't know, being straight up and honest, I don't know if that's something we could ever reverse because we have a very progressive city council that's very pro-criminal. I'm sorry to say it. Okay, I see that they put the priority on these people who commit crimes and they're really concerned about it. I have I have pictures sent to me with Tiffany Caban embracing an individual who is a registered sex offender, and she's hugging him. She doesn't care.
I took that photo.
That was you?
I took the photo,
Okay.
yup.
She doesn't care. Now, if I knew a person was a registered sex offender, I would try to not be in the same room with him. But she only does that because people don't care. It is obvious, because if you vote a person like that into office, you don't care. And I have people defend, oh, he was only a kid, they were young. No. No, to have sex with a 12-year-old girl, I don't care how. That's unacceptable. But she does it because people don't care. So what I'm proposing to you is to be an individual that's going to be representing the community. I will have my office open. I worked in the city council before, and all we did was serve constituents. That's basically what we did. I worked for Assemblyman Lafayette, and we did constituent services. We would actively call the community and ask people in the community, hey, is everything all right? Do you need anything in your block? Is your neighborhood okay? What's going on? And then some would say, hey, everything's fine, it's good. Some would say, no, we have this, we have that. Now, that's not happening here. You know it. You all know it. So what do we do about it? We have early voting from June 17th to June 25th. Go out, find it. You can call me. I'll give you my phone number, right? Log it down right now. I have the app. I can give it to you. You find out where you vote. If you want my number, 646-296-1791. I'll give it to you again. But you have to get out and vote. You have to get your people to vote. Just you doing a little bit is not going to help, because she has the act. She has a base.
That's a good point, it's true. She don't have to go to any of these meetings to ever open her office.
That's why
She has her own hard group.
She does. She has a hardcore group.
We have to vote against her, otherwise, that lady could be in for life.
One
She'll destroy us.
person gets 5 more to go, 5 more to vote, and continue. And we get it to grow. I'm doing my job to get elected, and I need your help to get me elected. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna talk long. I'll take your questions now. Whatever you wanna ask me, just do it.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Castro, as a lifelong resident of Queens, and I own a business here, and I live in Queens, the police department, back in the days of Rudy Giuliani, had approximately 40,000 uniformed officers in all different ranks. Now it's dwindled down to approximately 33,000. But the crime has risen more. So if the crime has risen more, and they've had 40,000 before, what can you do to get funding for the police department to bring back personnel?
Good question. Let's start with your council member. If your council member is not gonna ask for more police officers, you're never gonna get them, okay? She hates cops. So why would she put that in the budget to get more cops to come into the 114? It's never gonna happen. You need a person that's gonna be proactive and looking for more police officers. And that's what I would do. You might like Tiffany more than me, because I'm gonna be on top of you guys. I want results, you know?
Any other question? Yes.
Rent is out of control. In Astoria, the price of rent has gone up about like 13% over a year for one bedrooms, and unfortunately, rent stabilized units were just voted to now be up 3%. How do you plan on advocating for tenants facing completely irrational rent rises, especially in Astoria where there's so many incompetent and useless management companies leading ineffective and slum-like apartment buildings?
I was just reading today that it might be going up like 7% for 1 year, 7% again, it's 14%. It's insane. I mean, that's a really difficult issue when you have a city council that's working in favor of that, and you have a mayor working in favor of that. I don't know how we would address it, but I think in the big picture, you have to start voting these people out of office. Because if you don't, then you're going to keep dealing with that. I mean, that's a really tough challenge for one city council member to deal with. Honestly, it's very, very hard. I don't know how to deal with that.
Can I just say?
Yes.
No, excuse me.
Just a second, I just wanted to.
No, 1 second, no.
I know I'm following her.
No, hold on a second. Gentleman's had his hand for a while. Yes, sir.
Good to see that the two candidates here tonight are both pro-law enforcement, but lifelong Astoria resident, 30 years, a homeowner,
Well, I agree with you 100%, but that was done many years ago with the previous council member. They changed the zoning. Now, I would be in favor of stopping this because Astoria, I'm a lifelong resident of Astoria. Okay, I moved here when I was 16 years old, I'm 25 now. But I've been here since I'm 16. And the change is good sometimes, but it's like overdeveloped. It's too much. And then along with that, we've gotten so many outsiders come in here, but we don't get any more police, we don't get any more sanitation, we don't get any more firefighters, EMS workers. We get nothing more in services, we just get more people moving into the neighborhood. So that's, again, what's as a result of who's representing you. Okay, I would want all of you, more fire, police officers, sanitation. This has to come within the growth, and we're not getting any of it right now.
Okay, question?
It wasn't really a question. I was just saying insofar as the rent issue that people are having, I understand rents are getting higher, but a landlord's expenses are getting higher as well. And nobody seems to be caring or taking that into consideration with rent stabilized buildings.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but this issue, I'll be honest, I have to go along with the tenants because the rents are skyrocketing here.
Because there's more tenants than landlords. So of course, how are you going to do it?
Please, wait, you'll be called on. Hold on.
People weren't paying their rent, but the landlord was still expected to pay for the water, the taxes.
And that's a totally different issue, and I agree with you on that.
But the thing is that the landlords have to raise, they're in the business, and they have to survive. Maybe if you guys try to lower the taxes, I know there's the crazy regulations that they have.
Yeah, and the water tax, I agree with you.
Question, ma'am?
So, my question is for all of you. We know that we experienced the pandemic. We know that before the pandemic, they shut down the city and the state mental facilities. We know that after COVID and all the isolation, that we have people walking around that are definitely extremely mentally disturbed. Do you co-sign championing to reopen Creedmoor? Do you stand by opening up these mental facilities so that we can have a difference between those who are mentally challenged and criminals? Because you can't put Joe Rifkin in the same cage that you would somebody that suffers from schizophrenia. So I'm just trying to, wait, it's for all of y'all. Like, are you with it? Are you with it?
Absolutely right.
She's right, there's no resources for mental
Thank
health.
you.
25 years ago, there was 400,000 inpatient facility beds. Now there's not even 30,000. They let them all out and put them on medication. It's 100%.
I agree with you, but that happened a long time ago.
No, but I'm talking about here now. Because they have not provided anything. No mental health, mobile units with partitions.
I'm in agreement with you.
Right, okay, so I just want to be sure of that.
Absolutely.
Because whoever it is that we voting in, I want to make sure that everybody champions to get these people situated because mental illness, cancer, if an organ is dysfunctional, it's dysfunctional. And all these clinical studies show that our adolescents and our teenagers, remember, they can never experience Sweet 16 again or 18, etc. They missed a whole year and a half of school graduation.
I'm in agreement with you.
Right, so we in a situation where we do have a crisis, top that with this fentanyl crap and the depression and the Adderall, we are headed for disaster unless they reopen those mental facilities.
I'm in agreement with you.
But we're talking about now and whether they ready to champion and say, get these people out.
But you need a lot of people in the city council. You need a lot of people, not just one. But I'm down with it.
Right, I asked the question to all.
Yes.
So I heard who said aye.
I can answer, 100%. 100%. Not only it is not humane to leave our mentally ill on the streets, riding the subways. It's terrible. deserve it. Nobody deserves it. The drug addicts don't deserve it. They don't deserve to be sitting on the streets where they can go to a vending machine and get needles and get crack pipes and get that stuff either. They can do it as long as they're getting treatment that gets them out of using drugs. And they removed that part of the program. So now all they have to do is just be enabled to live on the streets, do drugs, be mentally ill. My daughter is terrified of people she sees on the streets because she has seen some really horrible stuff whenever we're in the city. And she tells me, Mom, what do we do? What do we do? We were in the city, she saw somebody come up, stick a needle in another person's back while they were doing drugs on Delancey. And my daughter says, what do? Do we call the police? How do we help them? We're a Christian family. My daughter was devastated. It's not how people we should be allowing people to live. It's inhumane, it's a dead end, period. Not only do we need mental health hospitals, but we need regular hospitals as well. And as far as the rental stuff goes, listen, the rents are ridiculous. I work in real estate, I know housing through and through. There are over 100,000 rent-stabilized apartments that are sitting empty because they can't put them on the market. Because they have Green New Deal energy standards they have to bring these apartments up to, and then they have to. I answered the mental health. I'm just going back to the landfill question. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Okay.
Round of applause, Mr. Castro, please. Just stay up here.
Also, the candidates are going to stay after the meeting, so you have any specific questions, you can address them,
Whatever happens on June 27th, this is my word. If I win, I'm good. If I don't win, I'm putting all my support behind a Republican candidate right here.
Also, we talked about mental health needs for adults and criminals and everything else. Most people in the room know I'm a retired educator, over 37 years in the classroom, different schools, and in this community I served over 25 years in the schools. The schools are suffering. Kids miss certain things. Certain schools have guidance counselors with a caseload of 500-600 to 1.
That's right.
Social workers, 1,000 to 1. The school psychologist roams from building to building. So maybe if they treated those children at the right age when they're youngsters, they would have mentally ill adults. So we're missing the whole thing. Even in schools, we talk about caseloads for teachers, 30 to 1, 32 kids in a classroom, stuff like that. There's, psychological services the kids need also. And they work with parents. If you have 500 children to one guidance counselor, how can you do the job? It just becomes, it's like having one cop for all the story.
And I agree with you, but I still think that they should have supplied mental health mobile units because mental illness does not discriminate. It's not black, it's not white,
Absolutely.
it's Spanish, it's not Chinese.
And all kids.
It's everybody.
Right, everybody
And
has
it's every age. You understand what I'm saying? We saw what happened with that fire emergency worker, right? The chief that was killed, right? She was doing her job.
Yeah.
And the person that killed her was what? Greek?
Yeah, she helped so many people her life.
So what I'm trying to say is mental illness is coming in all forms from every single direction, and we need to get something going here so that we can help these people and stabilize New York.
Also, we're not going to have a meeting in July and August, but September, October, when we come back, I'm going to be speaking to the board, and we have to have somebody coming in from the Department of Health to talk to us about programs that are necessary. Okay, so we'll address that next year. Our next speaker is also a Democrat, and she is running for, ladies and gentlemen, she's running for District Attorney for the County of Queens, Devin Daniels. Ms. Daniels?
Good evening, Astoria. My name is Debbie Ann Daniels, and I've been a lawyer in Queens for almost 17 years. I came to New York when I was 8 years old. My parents immigrated here, and when we moved to New York, I lived in the South Bronx. In the South Bronx, it was mostly Puerto Ricans And my junior high required us to learn Spanish, and I've learned it, and I think I'm pretty fluent these days. But nevertheless, I went through public school, I went to Brooklyn Tech, and I went away to college, and then I went to law school right here in Queens, at CUNY Law School. But there was one moment in my college career that affected me, and it was when I took a class in urban politics. And in the textbook, I read and learned that there were 9 neighborhoods in New York City where 70% of the prisoners came from. And I was shocked because it was my South Bronx neighborhood, and by then I moved to Jamaica, Queens, and also included Jamaica, Queens. And that troubled me and disturbed me because all my friends had gone to college, so I thought that's what everyone had done. And I didn't realize that there was a subculture of people who ended up in prison. And now we're fast forwarding to 2023, 20 years later, and there's still a lot of people from Jamaica who end up in prison. My new neighborhood on my home for the last 25 years. And there's a school to prison pipeline, and there's also a night to the prison pipeline. And that concerns me because, as you can see, I'm African American, and right now, African Americans are about 13% of Queens, but they're 50% of the defendants in court. And when they do go to court, their sentences are higher and harsher than their white counterparts. And so there are a lot of biases in the criminal court system, and I'm running to be DA because I think we need to address those and reduce those. Those biases have existed for a long time, and I don't think that they should continue into the future. When we reduce the biases in the criminal court system, it's smart for everyone in Queens. It means we can be safer, and it also saves us money as taxpayers. And what I mean by that is, did you know that it costs $550,000 a year to keep one person at Rikers Island? That's almost $60,000 a year. $550,000 is the price of a house 20 years ago. But it's too much money, and we cannot afford it. Now, there are people who belong in prison, people who use violence against other people who commit murders, people who traffic guns and people into Queens, people who abuse children and senior citizens. But not every crime is solved by automatic imprisonment. And there is a problem in Queens and in New York with mass incarceration. To keep somebody in prison in upstate New York State taxpayers are paying $115,000 a year. Now, there are many people who commit crimes for many reasons. Some people do it because they're violent and they were impulsive and they did it. And those crimes should be treated accordingly. But there are people who commit crimes because they have an underlying mental health issue or a substance abuse issue, or it could be because of poverty. And I think that we would be smart on crime if we were to have some programs for people who are first-time offenders and who are non-violent offenders to address the root cause of their crime. The problem is, if somebody has a mental health issue and we just send them to prison, whether it's for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, or 10 years, if we don't address their underlying mental health issue, they're gonna come out at some point and the same problems will be repeated and we'll be in the same cycle. And we as taxpayers are gonna be funding it. There are many issues with the DA's office that I think needs to be addressed for us to move forward. Number one, right now in Queens, 50% of the cases are being dismissed that are filed. Now, there is no law firm anywhere in New York City that would file cases and have a business model where 50% of them are being dismissed in court. They would change their model. We're not safe in Queens if half of our cases are dismissed. It either means we're arresting the wrong people or we're not competent at what we're doing. And that's why we need new leadership in the Queens DA's office. The police and the DA's office should file charges when they have the evidence. They shouldn't just file charges and hope something sticks, because that's not fair to the crime victims who think that the police have the right person and then suddenly the case is dismissed. It's not fair to the accused who might be spending a lot of money, their parents' money or their family's money, to defend themselves. And I know that this might not apply to any one of us in this room, but many of us are connected to other people who could be involved in the justice system, either as a crime victim or as a defendant. And having the court system be fair for everyone, regardless of your race and skin color, your zip code, and your sexual orientation or religion, should be really important to everybody in Queens. And the DA's office, the person who occupies the DA's office should care the most about justice. We should have one person full-time who's thinking about ways to make the system fairer, safer, and better for everyone in Queens. None of us want to be a crime victim, but if we become a crime victim, we want to make sure that the DA's office investigates that crime thoroughly and catches the right person, and then competently prosecute that person and consult with you at every stage of the prosecution so that the results are acceptable to you as a crime victim. And if for some reason somebody in your family or neighbor is accused of a crime, you don't want them to be railroaded in Queens. You don't want them to be taken advantage of by the DA's office. You want everything to be fair, and that includes getting all the evidence. Meaning, the prosecutor's office should not hide evidence or keep exculpatory evidence away from the defense. Because that's important, because if someone knows what the evidence is, then cases can be resolved in an expeditious manner. Now, how many people here are Italians? Yes, all right, nice. I have to say that one summer, I spent the summer in Rome. Well, I spent 1 month in Rome in a class on mediation, and then I went to Florence, and I had an internship at GE while I was in law school. And while I was there, I learned how to cook Italian food, and I loved Italian culture. But a few months ago, I was reading the newspaper, and if you want to read the article I'm talking about, if you Google jury discrimination in Queens, the article will pop up. And in that article, it talked about how there were some lawyers who currently work in the current DA's office who came up with a plan to discriminate against jurors. And one of the people who was in the groups was Italians. And they had a list of communities and people who they said, if they come to do jury duty, not to select them. Now, it was disturbing to me that that was in there because I thought I was reading about Alabama in 1920 and not modern day Queens. Jurors are the most innocent people in the criminal justice system. They're just following a citation and coming to court to do their jury duty. They do not expect that their government lawyers who are getting paid government salaries from government taxpayers would come up with a plan that says when these certain people come, not to choose them as jurors. Now, there are many defendants who are Italians, and I think that if they decide to have a trial in Queens, they're entitled to have a trial with their peers. And if all the Italians are excluded, then that's not their peers. And I think there's no excuse for the current DA to defend those lawyers, to promote them, to give them pay raises, or to give them supervision over junior lawyers. And I think that alone is disqualifying. We need a DA who will guard justice in Queens, not cherry pick cases and cherry pick defendants that they'll take advantage of. And I'm running to be DA because I believe no matter where you're from, you deserve fairness in criminal court. And I will be that person who will make sure that anyone who uses the criminal court system, whether they're a defendant or a crime victim or even a juror, that they experience fairness and justice. And I hope that on June 27th, that you'll choose Daniels for DA. Thank you.
Question, Ms. Daniels, please? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm a Brooklyn Tech graduate also, I'm class of 79, so congrats. But the fentanyl overdose deaths here in Queens are ridiculous. It happened to my family member. No investigation, it really wasn't a priority. So now I'm buying drugs from some nut lady, puts fentanyl in my drugs. Would you at least look at that as a possible homicide?
Absolutely. I mean, we need to investigate and get all the facts in every case and get all the evidence and then press charges. So if the facts warrant a homicide charge, then that's what it should be. And I think that,
At least check the cell phone.
say that again?
At least check the person who passed away, at least look at their cell phone Hey, Johnny,
Yeah, there should be a thorough
For investigation, wants to make sure the
Yeah,
investigation.
there should be a thorough investigation, and, yeah, and that's really important, that, we get all the facts and we do a thorough job. That's the minimum that Queens residents deserve. And it's not, and I think too that, you know, we need to make sure that we have thorough investigations so that we get the people who are committing crimes. Because if we do a sloppy job and we just arrest everybody, then and we have the wrong person, or 50% of the cases are being dismissed, then sometimes the real person who committed a crime would be in that 50%, and we're not safe if the wrong people aren't facing justice for what they've done.
Question, sir?
Yes, the pipeline you were referring to is actually a school to gang to prison pipeline. So what I would like to know is, will you advocate to defend the gang database so that we do arrest the right people who commit crime? And what will you then do to crack down on these gangs that are responsible for so much of the crime here in New York City?
So, I know that the current DA always reports that she's done a lot of gang takedowns, and it is true that many people were arrested. But I'm really interested in knowing what the conviction rate is, not the arrest rate, because you can arrest 100 people, but if 50 of them are getting their cases dismissed, that's not impressive. And what's not impressive to me too is, we do know that yes, there is a school to prison pipeline. There are some people who do join gangs, and there are a lot of people who live in housing projects who join gangs. And I think that as a DA, we can't just react to crime. We have to take initiative and come up with programs to help some of those kids. You know, when I was in college 20 years ago, or 23 years ago, you know, since over the last 23 years, we know what kind of works to help kids to avoid that pathway. And I think that we need to invest in those types of programs so that we can tackle it. Because otherwise, you know, a small investment of $1,000 or a few $1,000s in one housing project can yield benefits for taxpayers later on, so that they're not paying an exorbitant bill at Rikers Island for these people when they grow up. And I think it's really important that we look 20 years ahead and come up with how we want to go forward. We cannot keep going the way we are. But I believe that, yes, gangs, there are a lot of gangs that are in housing projects, and many people follow into it intentionally and some unintentionally. And I think we do need to have programs and invest in that to try to save some of those children from automatically joining it.
Another question, please? Yes.
So my question is this, I just want to follow up with this gentleman right now. I'm deeply sorry for your loss, sir. Deeply sorry, because a life is a life. So emphasizing on what he said right there, you know, I remember that there was an era where we went through like the crack era, because, you know, I'm originally from Jackson Heights, right? So Western Queens is my home. I grew up in the park, in the hood, all over, right? Back then, the investigations that were conducted in regards to narcotics were way more intensified, which is how, let's step backwards, they caught that prostitute that killed the chef and my friend Moses, because I was at the crime scene. So getting back to what the gentleman said right here.
Question, please.
Right, getting back to what the gentleman said right here. Do you plan on opening a specific unit? Like, because right now, all these narcotics, they just seized 200,000 was enough to kill 2 million Americans. Fentanyl, just in case y'all didn't know. You can look it up. So fentanyl is out there and it's flying everywhere as in track. Are you gonna try to arrange like a special narcotics division where people can be fully prosecuted and someone will go through that people's phone like he asked?
Yeah, I believe that we do need to thoroughly investigate crimes where people trafficking drugs into Queens. We don't need drugs in Queens. There are no drug factories or you know, the primary sources for drugs here. People bring it from the southern border and other places, and I think that we need to have a thorough investigation. We need to work with federal law enforcement so that we can work together to tackle it, since that's an important goal for all parties.
Okay, round of applause, Ms. Pizzangos. We have two candidates that are not on the agenda tonight, and they're both running for civil court judge. I'd like to introduce them, and at the same time, they can speak for 2 or 3 minutes. There's no questions because it's a judgeship. They'll be here to answer your questions after the meeting. We still want to hear from the inspector for a few minutes. The first one is Mariani Gonzalez. Mariani, you here?
Thank you. Well, it's a tough platform tonight. My name is Marianne Gonzalez, and I am an attorney. Been practicing law for 29 years, and I live in Queens. My practice is on Jamaica Avenue in Woodhaven. The only thing I know about Astoria, I have to be honest, is that my dad worked for Con Edison, and every year we had picnics on the deck. That's about it. But I'm here tonight to introduce myself to you as the candidate. I'm running for civil court judge countywide, so you could still vote for the person in your district, but I am for the county. And what I propose to do is treat everyone with fairness and be level-headed and be respectful. So I just ask for a little consideration. I could sit here and talk about myself all night, but I just can't do that because I'm not that kind of person. I work pro bono. I do a lot of work for indigent people. I speak to the children in the public schools so that they can get familiar with the people that they see, that they can be like me. I'm an everyday person. My office is basically open to the public. I'm very easy to get along with, and my goal is to help everyone. So as a judge, I feel that with my years of experience in the legal field and the personal experience that I bring to the table, education as well as common sense. I mean, you could be the smartest person on earth, but if you don't have common sense, you have nothing. So my goal is to enable people to feel comfortable, as they do when I represent them as counsel, feel comfortable speaking to me and knowing that I can relate to your experiences because I too was once in your shoes. So I hope that on the 27th you would consider voting for me. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to speak to you after this is over.
Round of applause, Ms. Thank you very much. The next other candidate is Sandra Perez. Ms. Perez, you here? Round of applause for Ms. Perez, please.
Thank you. Good evening. Nice to see you again. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. I'll keep it brief. We have a lot of rules as judicial candidates. We are not politicians. We can't speak about each other. We can't speak about bail reform. We can only speak about our experience. There's a lot that has been said about not knowing enough about judicial candidates. One of my pet peeves is that we have a social responsibility. It should not be eeny-meeny. It should be due diligence and homework and looking up people's credentials. I'll tell you very briefly about my background. I come from immigrant parents, came to this country, worked very hard, worked for the garment industry. Both of them had sewing machines in my house. My sister and I had all our clothes made by my parents, both my mother and my father. They put us through parochial school in the 70s, and we basically worked hard from the ground up. I was an assistant district attorney back in 1994 under Charles Hines. I learned how to practice criminal law the right way. I was able to be trained on evidence, law, and procedure. Interviewed victims, made decisions as to the relevance of a case, the weight of a case, worked very closely with law enforcement, and then went on to do defense work. I did not-for-profit work. I represented victims of domestic violence and domestic violence survivors in federal court and immigration court and in criminal court. And this is my work. It's been my passion since 1994. And what does it mean for you as a citizen that you have a judge who's been on both sides? It means that I've been with victims. I understand the plight of a mom as well, whose kid got caught up with the wrong crowd because she had to work long hours, because the libraries were not open. I know what that is like when I have a crying mom in my office who could only pay $100 or $200 a month for her son's legal fees so that he doesn't go to prison and he gets another chance. I know about mental illness because there's so many children addicted to Adderall before they get to ninth grade because the teachers are overwhelmed with the crowding in the classrooms. And now we have them in the courthouses, accused of crimes and being sent to Rikers Island, when clearly all they needed at one point in their lives, while they could have been rescued, was understanding and the right education. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my passion because I've seen it on both sides. I also feel incredibly passionate about public safety. My mom is no longer with us, but I remember her being a very happy New Yorker and going from that to feeling like she had to be a prisoner in her own home because there's predatory tactics now against our children and our seniors. And I believe we have to have a no-nonsense policy toward random violence and predators against seniors and common citizens who are simply trying to live their lives. Our business owners cannot have regular hours because people are walking in, stealing and walking out, and people can't make a living and pay their bills and pay their mortgage. These issues are not political. These issues I can speak about because these are the kinds of cases that will come before me, and that's where my 29 years of experience in the criminal courthouse, my whole life, in the justice system, and while they call it civil court, ladies and gentlemen, as my colleague Judge Grasso had mentioned yesterday, a lot of the cases that come before the courthouse are the judges that they place in the courthouse, even though they call it civil, they're actually doing criminal court in arraignments. And that's where I ask you, you can go to my website. My resume has been online for over a year, way before I was nominated. Also add, it took me 3 years to become nominated. It was a lot of work. I don't take it lightly. So I ask you to go to my website, Perez for Judge 2023. You can see all of my credentials, my background, and I'm fully available to answer any questions regarding my qualifications and anything else that you may have. Thank you very much and have a good evening. God bless everyone.